in fourth grade. I had gotten a part in one of the school plays, and some of the other students were asking, "Oh, why does she always get, chosen? Why does she always get the part in the play?" And I remember I practiced very hard for that. I stayed up late. I practiced my lines. I practiced the songs that we were to sing, and I remember saying it's because I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that confidence. But then I quickly got reprimanded by the teaching assistant in the classroom for that confidence. She was like, "Oh, why would you say that? And that's really cocky of you." She said it in front of the whole class too, and something about the way that that was handled started to make me question myself.
Yeah.
From that point, I not even realizing it, I began to shrink myself to make other people comfortable.
Hi, you're listening to On Your Terms with me, Hayley Ryan. This is the show where two people get honest about the messy reality of choosing yourself. No scripts, no performance, just real conversation about self-abandonment, boundaries, and what it actually looks like to live on your own terms. So let's get into it.
Hi, on today's episode, I've got Dara, and she is an educational leader, doctoral candidate, poet, and mother of four who is committed to living in truth and walking in purpose. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, obviously, you've had to choose yourself in a lot of ways, and I believe that it all started with the passing of your sister. Do you want to tell me a little bit more, sort of, about where it started and what led up to you choosing yourself?
Absolutely. So I grew up in South Mississippi, the Bible Belt, and I was the youngest of four sisters, actually.
Wow.
I grew up and I was a really confident child. Um, I was very interested in singing. Our dad was a minister of music. So he had us, dress up in our little choir robes and we would go around singing to those in nursing homes and volunteering. So lots of service there. I grew up and came from very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Um, our family did the best that they could. We were a young Black family in South Mississippi, so you could only imagine the challenges that we had to face. We weren't very wealthy at all by any means. Some might even say, we were right there on the poverty line. So I was basically the what you would consider as a first generation college student. Neither
Yeah.
one of my parents had went to college. So my sister, she decided to go to the Navy. And we all experienced things in our childhood that were, troubling. We all had sort of trauma, not only trauma from our day to day lives, but that cultural trauma
Yeah.
piece of being Black and living in South Mississippi. Um, and then we always tried to overcome that, right? I remember being really interested in singing and plays and acting. I wanted to be an actress. I didn't even
Same.
want to work in education at first. But I remember a moment in fourth grade. I had gotten a part in one of the school plays, and some of the other students were asking, "Oh, why does she always get, chosen? Why does she always get the part in the play?" And I remember I practiced very hard for that. I stayed up late. I practiced my lines. I practiced the songs that we were to sing. And I remember saying it's because I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that confidence. But then I quickly got reprimanded by the teaching assistant in the classroom for that confidence. She was like, "Oh, why would you say that? And that's really cocky of you." She said it in front of the whole class too, and something about the way that that was handled started to make me question myself.
Yeah.
From that point, I not even realizing it, I began to shrink myself to make other people comfortable. And I think unintentionally done, she kind of broke down that confidence in me.
Yeah, instead of building you up like she should have been doing, she tore you down and made you feel like being good at something was not something you wanted to strive at, rather than, like you say, shrinking yourself down to make sure everybody else feels comfortable.
Right. Now being an educator and older, I can think of 1,000 ways that situation could have been handled
Oh yeah.
to, ensure my confidence was kept intact and then the other students were encouraged. But, this particular teacher's assistant, she basically put me down in order to build the other students up. And, unintentionally started the beginning of a reputation for me because
Mm.
um, in South Mississippi, in the Black community, there's a lot of things at play, right? We have colorism, and I am a very light skinned, Creole appearing Black American, and that within itself comes with privilege. But, though my family wasn't very wealthy, they kept us together.
Yeah.
We didn't look like we ever went without. So there are all these dynamics that were at play at the time. And, you know, as a kid, it's just like questioning yourself. Am I cocky? I definitely would get the compliments and appreciative of that. And then my parents made sure to build me up as they should.
Yeah, oh,
Every parent
definitely.
should build their kids up, and I did. I had a lot of success in school with my grades. Made straight A's. Would get a lot of awards, and that was something that I was proud of because me. I'm thinking no one else knows this. We literally came from nothing. So to be made to feel like your accomplishments somehow harm others and automatically make you, this bad person is just something that a kid should not have to carry, but I carried it.
Yeah.
And um, it it spilled over into my adult life. I noticed things, I was a very assertive person. I am an assertive person. And my assertiveness is often called aggression. So I soften my voice. I'm knowledgeable about certain things, especially when I put my mind to it and study it. But that's seen as being a know it all. So I began asking questions about things that I already knew the answer to and I already
Mm.
understood. I noticed that my passion made people feel uncomfortable. So I, started over apologizing for it. Um, and that pattern not only spilled into, you know, my schooling and my education and my career choices, but also my relationships and
Yeah.
my sense of identity overall. I tolerated harm. I tolerated a lot of things that I should not have. I overforgave. I settled in places, in spaces, and with people that didn't align with who I really was because I didn't want to be seen as difficult, or I didn't want to be seen as a person who thinks I'm better,
Mm.
right? Um, February 2023 came and my sister passed away. And, loss has a way of stripping everything down to what really matters. When she died, something in me shifted. I realized life is way too short to walk around and live masked.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. I was wearing a mask.
Yeah, and I
um,
can relate because I am very similar to you, but kind of flipped. Because for me, it was, I learned at a really young age that you had to be successful and you had to be needed to be loved. And so I sort of kind of went the opposite way to you, rather than softening myself. I was like chasing achievements and things like that because I thought that was what I needed to do.
Absolutely. And I resonate with that as well. The making straight A's and trying to get all the awards. And with four sisters, you could imagine there's a
Oh
bit
yeah,
of sibling rivalry there. And we wanted to make our parents very proud of us. And that doesn't come without a weight.
mm,
It's really heavy to carry. And anytime that you feel like you're not, meeting those expectations, you do start to feel a sense of unworthiness.
yeah,
Um, Even if nobody says it, right? It's just something intrinsic. And I did have that intrinsic motivation, but yeah, kind of like you, I think a lot of pain that I had and a lot of the things that I was going through, I stuffed it and
mm,
put it into I'm going, into my work, into my studies, into becoming the best, servant leader possible, serving others.
yeah,
That's kind of what my life has always been about. Um, and there are some positive, it's not a negative thing. There are some benefits to that, but it becomes harmful when you lose yourself
yeah,
in that process of serving others. Um, and so, when my sister died and it's almost like I had an epiphany. Um, this is a sister that, you know, I'd adopted her twin girls,
mm,
and we didn't have the best relationship um, leading up to her death because she was struggling with some things, and I was in the mind frame of I'm focusing on my life, and the way that I'm helping you with your struggles is taking care of these
yeah,
children. Um, and so some of the things, she was going through, I couldn't put myself in the position to be aligned with it, knowing the cost of
yeah.
the girls. And I remember going to her hospital. She was in Houston, Texas. I was living in Illinois. And I went to the hospital. She wasn't doing very well. And there was a point, she would kind of be in and out of it with coherence. And I remember just singing to her, singing some church songs that we had sang together as kids. And she started singing with me.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, and we had a moment of reconciliation, right? Because I'm like, do you know who I am? Do you know who's here in front of you? She said, yeah, my little sister. And right then I knew, whatever had happened before, it didn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah,
because I was still her little sister. And, I took out a picture of her biological twin girls, and I was like, this is who they are now. And they're okay. And I'm gonna continue to take care of them.
wow,
And, that was a moment. She also has two other kids. And, I told her, as long as I'm here, I'm going to make sure they're always all taken care of. And
got
so,
goosebumps.
yeah, she thanked me for that. And, towards the end there, I asked her, do you want to fight? Because I truly believe there's a choice that we have to make if we want to live.
Yeah,
And we make that choice daily without even realizing it. But when you're, literally on your deathbed, and I do believe we, at some point, can muster up will. And she very clearly told me, no,
God, that must have been
no, I'm
heartbreaking
ready.
to hear.
No, not really. Um, I know of what she had to endure
Yeah,
here, you know. And I'm the type of person, I'm not afraid of death. It is inevitable for all
mm,
of us. Um, and life had beat her up and torn her apart. And I knew she was tired. She kept saying it. I'm tired. I'm tired. And, I think doctors and nurses thought, oh, she just needs to rest. No, I knew what she meant,
Yeah.
which is why I asked her the question I asked her. And she was like, yeah. And so we prayed, and I told her, everything's going to be okay. I think, I do believe she made peace there, at the end, and she was at peace of leaving. She lived a life, and I do believe she's on the other side, whatever that may be, whether it's, as energy
Mm.
positively shining down on us, ensuring that, we're okay. And even with my decision after her death, it's like something clicked in me. And I've said this before, but I just felt like life is way too short to live wearing this mask. I ended up making some major decisions, and honestly, every single one of them have been for the betterment of my life. Um, I got a divorce from 10, 11-year marriage, 14-year relationship. Um, I left a job that paid crazy amount of money, but didn't align with my values. And I started pouring into myself in a way that, I never had before. I started working out, healing,
Mm.
really asking who I wanted to be, and asking myself what aligned with my spirit. I went to therapy. Sure enough, I'm a firm believer in
Oh
therapy.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, and it helped because it helped me answer some of those questions without the background noise of others who might influence that. It's
Yeah.
just me with my thoughts, with this outside person who's kind of guiding the questions to help me get to where I need to be. And I realized, even with talking with the therapist, that there was a lot of reprogramming that I had to do, not only from my upbringing and the things that I had experienced as youth, but also from society as a whole, from
Mm.
television shows, movies, from music. Um, I had to unlearn a lot of things, and I had to unlearn the ways that I had been taught to shrink myself.
Yeah. And that was sort of like your sister's passing was the catalyst of that. So that caused you to like reassess your marriage and reassess your job and everything like that. And that can't have been easy because obviously with is it four of your own kids and then the two nieces that you adopted as well?
So two biological kids, 12 and 6 now. And then the twins
Yeah.
were my sister's
Obviously
biological
all
kids.
yours because you've raised them, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
the twins are 13 now, but yeah, 4 girls.
wow. That must have taken a lot of courage then to decide to make all those changes in such a short time span.
Absolutely. Courage and honestly quieting voices who would call me crazy. Oh, you lost your sister. You're going through a mental breakdown. Maybe, or maybe it's a mental breakthrough
Yeah. That was one of the
because I've
questions I was going to ask is like was it all blamed on grief by everybody else and how did that sort of how did you reconcile with that?
absolutely. I definitely was grieving. I can't deny that. But I think with grief, and with my grief specifically, came clarity.
Yeah.
And I was more clear than I had ever been, even just with the reaction or support or lack thereof, right, that I received during my sister's passing. I realized I am truly in this world alone. I was born, by myself, and I'm going to die by myself. And I am not putting my care in anyone's hands. I'm not making decisions based on other people's comfortability anymore.
Mm.
And that clarity helped me, with my resolve, and it helped me set necessary boundaries. It came to a shock to a lot of people because I am a pretty private person. It's interesting that I'm doing a podcast now. And I'm not, I'm trying not to share too much
Yeah.
personal business, but I also think there's power in people's stories, and a lot of us are going through some of the same things, and it's kind of taboo to talk about. And so I find strength in opening up in safe spaces and
Yeah.
sharing, parts of me that could maybe help in the healing of others or help as others are faced with some of those tough decisions or life changing decisions.
Yeah.
So honestly, I told myself, I prayed, I was in therapy right after my sister died. And so I was talking with the therapist about, a lot of what I was feeling there. And then I made a decision, myself. And I made the decision that I was not going to consult with anyone. It would just be me and God. And I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of in the closet on my knees crying.
Wow.
I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe when you reach out to God, or whoever it is, the universe or whatever it is, that higher power, that higher being, which is inside of all of us.
Yeah.
When you quiet your thoughts and quiet others' opinions and thoughts, you'll get your answer. And I most certainly received my answer as clear as day, and had to have that conversation, with my husband at the time, um, and ask that, we do this just like we came into the mirror. We made that decision. Um, and so let's do this without the input of everyone else.
Yeah.
Because I think that can be, detrimental, right? So I made it happen, or we made it happen, I guess. And it doesn't come without, I did have to deal with those things of, oh, you're grieving, it's going to change. My mind was made up though.
Mm.
And I, I don't falter on that
Yeah.
decision. Um, yeah.
So how did your husband take it when you first went to him and said, like, this isn't working for me anymore and we need to make changes going forward? How, because I'm guessing for him it just kind of came out of the blue from the clarity that you'd had after your sister's passing.
I can't speak to how it felt for him. Um, I can speak to what I witnessed. I think
Yeah.
there had been things right there before. We had been through a lot um, together since college, and I think we both were two different people, and the signs
Yeah.
had been there, and the conversations had been had way before this.
Yeah.
I think there might have been a bit of shock that I'm going through with this, right? So, not to speak too much on that, because whatever his reaction was, wasn't going to change my resolve.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Um, I think it was a shock to a lot of people in our lives because seemingly on the outside looking in, it was perfect, and a part of that was my doing, right? What I posted on Instagram or social media. I only had Instagram, and because I truly love my family and I truly am the type of person to see the good in everything and always want to highlight the good,
Yeah.
but I think that is unintentionally deceptive because nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
There's always messiness or, there's always something going on in the background.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
I think even when things appear perfect, they're kind of imperfectly perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think speaking to myself, I was living a version of myself that made other people comfortable.
Yeah.
And that wasn't fair, to anyone involved. Um, and so I had to be very honest about that and come to terms with that. And, you know, mm, think conversations and messages, what I tried to do was make sure, you know, there was an understanding of I am I'm doing this so I can live and be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Because
interesting,
the
isn't it?
way that it's going, or the way that it was going, honestly, I was not okay. I had lost myself in motherhood and being a wife and being a leader. I was extremely overwhelmed at the time with a
Yeah.
lot of things. I had a lot of anxiety. Like I said, I had over forgiven and I had let a lot of things go, even to the point of, my ex-husband being allergic to fish. I grew up in South Mississippi. I fished with my daddy all the time. Love catfish, love fish fries, seafood boils, and didn't even enjoy that because of, his preferences or his
Yeah.
um the way that it might negatively impact him. I
Yeah.
had put so many people above myself, and that was truly doing a disservice to me, um, my health, my identity, and I needed it to stop right away. And it's hard when you make that choice because, other people don't understand it because they've been benefiting from who you
Yeah.
are or who you were. So, even now, when we talk about the messy middle, I am feeling the impact and effects of that.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously you mentioned you when you were younger you wanted to be an actress, and you've spent basically your entire life from that moment of being told like, no, you can't be that confident. You've spent like the rest of your life up to that point basically acting and performing a role that fits the situations you're in and the people you're with to keep everybody comfortable at the expense of yourself. So how what did that kind of feel like when you realized that's what you'd been doing?
Yeah. I think I felt like I had betrayed myself.
Yeah.
Not only myself, but I betrayed God because, He's the creator and I was made in his image, not in the image of man. And I was succumbing to becoming who society, you know, deemed I should be.
Yeah.
Those pressures, right? Um, Especially some of the things that we're taught growing up in the South about being a wife, being a mother, and that's kind of what I speak to when I say I had to unlearn a lot of things
Yeah.
and I had to reprogram. Um, it wasn't serving me well at all. And I
Yeah.
did. I felt like I had definitely betrayed myself and I needed to get back on course with what aligned with my true values.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely not alone in that, because I know for a fact, obviously, I've been through that and felt that betrayal of myself, and up until the point I decided to choose myself. I spent a whole career. I spent 12 years in a career that I didn't choose to go into. I was in relationships that just kind of happened, and I felt like I'd been living life on autopilot and just going through the motions, and like life was kind of happening to me and I was just going along for the ride rather than actually living my life and doing it the way that I wanted to, and making myself happy rather than making everybody around me happy. And I think I've noticed on social media that is something that a lot of women and a lot of men tend to go through as well. It's almost like we need permission to choose ourselves because it's seen as being selfish.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and I've been called selfish. And, I had to kind of lean into that. Well, yeah, maybe I am at this point selfish,
And
and
I
that's
don't think there's
okay.
yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. it's not like it's a selfishness as in it's malicious. It's not. It's you're caring for yourself in a way that other people, it might be selfish to other people. It might feel, I think feel is probably the best way. It might feel selfish to everybody else because they're used to the version of you that's giving and like
Yeah.
doing whatever it takes to make them feel comfortable, and now they're the ones that are feeling uncomfortable, and you're happy, and that's new, that's different to them.
Right. And I think that comes with a piece of this idea of being a person that is basically controlled
Yeah,
by other people or by circumstances. And I talked about a little bit in the beginning how, I was in school plays and I was singing and I was acting and I wanted to be an actress. And then I had gotten that reprimand from the TA, saying, "Oh, cocky." So shortly after that, interestingly enough, um, I, was put into a gifted program. And one of the special education teachers who, had a good rapport with my family and everything, she came to me and she kind of knew about how we would go to nursing homes and things and sing. So she asked me to go into her classroom, her special education, self contained classroom, and read with some of the students and provide, kind of fellowship with
yeah,
them. So I did because I'm going to do what I'm asked. But I quickly found that I enjoyed that. And now that I say it out loud, I think I began to create my identity around that because it was, I basically took what my TA said about, me being cocky and became humble from that experience and start becoming the most selfless person I could be.
yeah,
And it was that moment as well that I realized I want to be a teacher. I want to be a special education teacher. I want to pour, into students. I really did enjoy helping people, but I created a whole identity around it, not realizing what I was doing, and became selfless to the point of losing myself
yeah,
and losing, you know, other things that I enjoy to do. I don't think there's a problem with being in the helping field or being selfless and wanting to help others. Um, and, also remembering you are a person and you have passions and you have desires as well.
yeah. And it's like being on an airplane, isn't it? It's like when they do the safety brief at the beginning, it's always like make sure you take care of yourself first before you take care of other people. And it's true, is it? You can't pour from an empty cup. So you need, if you're gonna be in a helping field, like especially, you need to be focusing on taking care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you supposed to take care of the people that you're entrusted with?
It's true. And then, especially if you have to really be in tune with taking care of yourself, especially if you don't have the support or a
Yeah,
partner that will, kind of fill in for you, right? Because while I'm out here volunteering, being, you know, teacher, pouring into kids that are not my kids and pouring into my kids, how was I being poured into?
yeah,
I wasn't, and I didn't realize that for a very long time. I just kinda suffered in silence, not realizing, what was going on with me or what I was missing.
so how do you deal with that now?
Yeah, now I've really focused on myself a lot, in the best ways possible. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. I've had 2 biological kids, so with that comes weight gain. I was tired a lot, just I I had gotten to the point where I didn't even wanna leave the house, not really going out or anything, not even to get groceries or go to the grocery store. I would have them delivered, but now I make it a point to go out. I go to the grocery store. I'm fill my time with things that I enjoy. I paint. I love to write poetry. I love creative writing.
Mm.
I write and I journal a lot. I've been meditating quite a bit every morning. Actually, I get up 4:30, pray, meditate, work out, do breath work. I've started following Wim Hof,
Yeah.
who has the breathing exercises, and that really helps me. And I've set boundaries. I've blocked people from my life. I've had to burn bridges,
Yeah.
right? And I've had to be okay with that. I've really focused on my healing, continued therapy, just that work on myself is really, it's helped me out a lot. Boundaries, even with my kids, telling them mommy needs an hour and I'm going to
Yeah.
take it, and not succumbing to mom guilt, because I had that a lot. I think all
Yeah.
moms get it, but I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you're going to be okay. I, I'm a good mom and you are very well taken care of. Give me an hour by myself and that's going to be fine with
Yeah.
everybody involved. Um, but yeah, I'm not going into spaces or around people that don't have my best interest in mind. Not arguing with fools, just speaking my truth and not biting my tongue,
Yeah.
fighting for myself and standing up for myself. Those are all things, I've been doing to kind of get back to who I am. Overall, just protecting my peace.
Yeah. As I say, for me, I think that the main thing for me was sort of reevaluating what my non-negotiables were and figuring out, because I tend to respond better with what I like, with recognizing what I don't want as opposed to what I do, and then trial and error from there. So for me, it was definitely like you say, boundaries, but placing those boundaries against my non-negotiables and moving forward from there. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard, and you've got to, like you say, you've got to create those pockets of time, even if it's just like little bits, like getting up a bit earlier if you need to get that little bit of time in to do the meditation in peace and quiet, or like I like walking meditation, so I'll do it while I'm walking my dog, because it means like it doesn't matter how busy my day is, I've always got like that half an hour where I'm walking the dog, and I can just be really intentional and take that time for me rather than dealing with anything else that's going on in my world.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Getting up earlier has definitely helped reclaim, my time. I get energy from alone time. It
Yeah,
definitely drains me when I'm around a lot of people. I don't know, what that's called, but it's almost like I cannot take in people's energy. I have to, in order to, kind of reset myself or re-energize. I have to be by
yeah,
myself for a bit. I really enjoy watching the sunrise as well, and doing sun gazing. So that, even just realizing those things, being outside and being in nature.
yeah,
Um, my kids don't like going outside that much. Anytime I can get myself to a walk or a hike or anything like that, I'm doing it. And then what you said about, your non-negotiables, I think for me, it might be the opposite. I had to really think about what I want.
yeah,
And one of my words of, this whole experience has been peace. And I've just asked God, to strengthen my discernment
yeah,
and help me trust myself when I have that feeling that this is not peaceful, to immediately walk away or to
yeah,
not engage. Um, and that's helped me with my boundaries,
yeah.
realizing
It's
the
funny
end
because,
goal is peace.
yeah, see, I'm the same, but mine is freedom. So I consciously make choices that lead to freedom rather than being stuck or obligation or anything like that. So it's very, very similar in how we're kind of navigating things.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously you mentioned about still being stuck in that messy middle. So what kind of things are you still struggling with?
Yeah, so healing isn't clean. It's not like you say, "Oh, I'm healed, it's done." Um, it isn't a finished process. I've had to go into a lot of solitude. My
Mm,
circle is much smaller now. I talk to less people. Like I said, I spend a lot of time meditating, breathing, working out, protecting my peace. I think one of the hardest things that I've had to accept is that boundaries do change relationships, and some doors might change and some bridges might burn.
yeah,
Um, and when you stop shrinking yourself, people sometimes will miscategorize you. They might call you difficult or arrogant or hard to deal with. Um, but I think one of the things that I've learned from that is that it's not my job to manage what people think about me. That's for them to sit with.
yeah.
My responsibility is solely to live in alignment with what I know is true to my heart.
That yes, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we can, we care. Whether we
yeah,
say we do or don't, we care, about um, connection with people. And I
yeah,
do think, to a certain extent, we all um, yearn for that connection. I think, though, at coming to the realization that all connection is not good connection
mm,
and not values aligned, helps me to be a little more um, okay
yeah,
with solitude because no connection is worth my peace. I am not dealing with conflict for the sake of conflict.
yeah,
I'm not dealing with any more lessons that are, you know, I've had a lot of lessons and I've had a lot of growth opportunities. And at this point, I think I've gained wisdom enough to be able to determine what's going to be worth um, spending my time on and what's
yeah.
not. And
Yeah,
so,
I completely get that because, like, for me, like, I would much rather have like one or two really close, like, people that I'm really close with, that where it's an equal exchange of energy. So we're both like we're all giving as much as we're taking from each other, than have multiple people in my life that it's very one sided and they're just take, or I'm taking more from them because obviously the connection goes both ways sometimes, doesn't it?
yeah,
So yeah, I'd much rather be more discerning about where my time and my energy goes. And like you say, like it's hard. You do have to burn some bridges, and I've like there's people I've been close to from school. So it's like decades we've been friends, and all of a sudden I've made changes. They have obviously stayed the same, and they don't like it because they're not benefiting from this version of me. So they kind of drifted away, and I sometimes find it difficult because I feel like I should reach out and like try and repair things, but then at the same time
mhm,
I'm like, yeah, but why? Because I don't want that kind of drama in my life anymore. So it's
right.
really hard finding the balance of like what to fight for and what to just let go of.
Yeah, and I think some things, just end up releasing on their own
Yeah,
naturally.
yeah,
And I've grown to be okay with that. I've always felt like I was a person who valued, close relationships. And with who I was before, I did let a lot of stuff go, let a lot
mm,
of little microaggressions and micro insults. It's like, I just didn't address it because I didn't want to be, the B word.
yeah,
um, or the complete opposite of that, if you weren't a person I deemed in a close relationship, I'm going to address it. I'm going to address it in a strong way. and you're
Yeah.
going to know. So I think a part of my becoming is about finding that balance and just knowing, and I don't want to sound like, oh, high and mighty, but like, what's beneath me?
Mm.
Because this doesn't align with my values.
Yeah.
And it's not going to move me forward, and it's not going to stop the show in any way. So some things I don't address, and that is the addressing of it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. It makes perfect sense. So obviously, like you've got these 4 girls as well. So how does that make you feel? Because you're kind of like setting an example for them now as well, aren't you? In choosing themselves. So how does that kind of play out in day-to-day life? Do you see
Oh my goodness.
it rubbing off on them a little bit as well?
Absolutely. They all, have their different little personalities. Like I said, there's 2 13-year-olds, the twins, the 12-year-old, and then the 6-year-old. It's funny watching them day to day because, like I said, I'm the youngest of 4 sisters, 3 of which I live with. So there's a lot of, things that I see as in them as sisters that maybe I kind of had to go through, but a different way with my sisters. Um, and I think the biggest thing that I notice is how they see me react to things, right? Without someone else's energy
Yeah.
kind of impacting that or driving that. Because for the longest, we all lived in this house together, and um, a man's energy really brings a lot with it.
Yeah.
And I think the way that we kind of handle things are different. And so it's like now being a single mom, I'm free to react or not react without the pressures of someone else, um, controlling that, or what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of influencing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they see a mom that is really pouring into herself. They see me get up early, and sometimes they get up with me. The little one loves to get up and watch me work out and stuff. I'm like, girl, go to sleep. But they see how I interact with them in a way that's understanding
Yeah.
and graceful. And, I don't overreact. One of them broke a glass the other day, and there was no anger. And it was just, yeah, a little bit of shock, but I get to use humor with them, and
Yeah.
it's okay. Like, girl, you gonna buy me another glass? Or, and, I get to give them grace in ways that may have been frowned upon before.
Yeah.
So, they see their mom pouring into herself, getting in the best shape of her life. And, they see kind of my rapport with those I do deem as friends and those that I am close with. Um, they see me being loved in a different way.
Oh, I
Because,
love that.
I have found a new partner, and not I have found because I was not looking. The universe kind of just brought us together, right?
Yeah.
And they see that, and they see, the care provided to their mom, help with cooking dinner, and help with cleaning, and help with other things. And basically, when I get home from work, like picking me up and
And that,
allowing me the opportunity to rest and have a little decompression time before getting right into it. And they are respecting those boundaries. It was hard at first.
yeah.
6-year-old loved to be in bed with me and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And then when I say there's no more mom guilt now, very, very little, here and there shows up just by my own accord, but
Yeah.
as far as them, they get it.
Yeah. And I suppose seeing how it rubs off on them positively as well, it makes it all kind of worth it as well. Like all the bridges that have been burnt and the sort of decisions that were maybe very difficult for you to make for one reason or another. I suppose it makes it all feel worthwhile if you're seeing how it's sort of positively affecting them as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad that they get to see this version of me because it was
Yeah.
someone they had not met. They had met, the mom who absolutely they knew cared about them because it was them. Like my life was work and my children and being a wife, right? But now they get to see mom has passions. Mom gets, dressed up and goes to poetry shows. Mom is writing poetry.
Yeah.
Mom is painting. Mom is going hiking. And they come with me and they paint with me and they listen to my poetry and they even try to write poetry sometimes. It's so cute.
Oh,
And
bless.
they'll read it to me.
Oh, that's so cute. And it shows them that they don't have to soften themselves and be somebody else as well, doesn't it? Which is amazing for the children to grow up in an environment where they're celebrated rather than like even when it's not intended, just like put down. It's good because they're gonna learn from the lessons that you've kind of been teaching yourself as you've been going through life, and hopefully things will be a little bit easier for them as they start growing up and realizing that it's okay to do what they want to do and to not necessarily pay attention to all the noise that's going on around them.
Absolutely. Even with the decisions they make with,
Yeah.
their own friendships and um their relationships even with each other, I always find opportunities to talk to them about who they are.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been trying to bring to the forefront of them, especially with losing myself, whether it's trying to be who my parents wanted me to be, trying to be who, society or a man wanted me to be. You know, getting to know who you truly are, um, it's a divine epiphany
Yeah.
because there's only one of us in this world, and we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the world to be that person and
Yes.
without any of the other influences.
Yeah.
And so when they, get into it or get into little disagreements, which comes around often, I'm able to, look objectively and not choose sides and say, well, don't you think it's okay that her perspective is this and yours is this?
Yeah.
And, getting them to realize like it's okay to be who they are and they don't have to do what all the other little girls are doing at school and they don't have to, like something just because somebody else likes it. We have those conversations quite often.
That's really, really nice. So obviously it took like for you to get that clarity, it took losing your sister. What would you say to somebody who is in the same sort of situation as you were back then, with like feeling like they can't over excel and they've got to soften their voice and basically play a role to make everybody else comfortable? What would your advice be to them so to enable them to choose themselves?
Yeah, I think it's just like I, just said to you, take the time to figure out who you really are. What are your values? What are your boundaries? What kind of life do you truly want to live? And then I would say be that person unapologetically because we all only get one life and you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the creator to live it fully as who you were meant to be.
Beautiful. I love that. And I hope if anybody's listening and they're sort of going through something and need that little nudge, I think that should be enough at least get them started and hopefully make some little, like, start with, like you say, figure out what your values are, figure out the life that you want to lead. And if it's too scary to make all those changes at once, just start with one tiny little thing and take it one step at a time. Because if you're moving towards that, then it's going to get easier and easier as you keep going.
For sure.
Well, it has been absolutely wonderful talking to you. I've really, really enjoyed it. I got goosebumps when you were talking about your sister. I felt a lot of love from you, and I think that's an absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking story, to be honest. So if people want to connect more with you and sort of find out what you're doing now, what you're up to, and how you're choosing yourself, how do they do that?
So I do have an Instagram, Dara of Sunshine.
Love that.
Yeah. They can follow me there. I post a lot of working out and even some poetry there. Just hoping to, share my journey. And if it resonates, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. There's always something out there that resonates with someone.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and sharing your story. I hope everybody that's listening has enjoyed it as much as I have. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I know these conversations aren't always easy to sit with, so we really appreciate you sticking through it. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can join our Discord community at www.halleyryan.co.uk/Discord, and we'll see you next week.